Today on Legally Us, Kevin Costner's divorce gets uglier, Kim Zolciak is sued, and Michael Oher goes after The Blind Side. Plus, Tyga fires back at Blac Chyna after she asks for joint custody. We've got that plus so much more on today's Legally Us. Hey everyone, welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina. That's, of course, Nima Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Nima. How are you?
Hi, Christina. Welcome back. We missed you.
I know, I missed you too, and I know that there was a lot of news last week. There's a lot of news this week, so let's get right into it. Starting with Kevin Costner, because his estranged wife, Christine, accused him of withholding information about his businesses ahead of their next court date. An attorney for Christine asked the court to compel Kevin to produce documents related to his business affairs in a request for order filed on August 21st. So in the court filing, Christine's lawyer accused Kevin of stonewalling by refusing to share the requested information before a child support hearing scheduled for this week, and the duo's November trial to determine the validity of their prenuptial agreement. So according to her request, the court will receive evidence regarding Kevin's gross cash flow available for support and anticipated future income. So at the hearing, Christine will be unable to present any evidence that Kevin has chosen to withhold from discovery. So they're requesting all this legal information. He's saying that he's not withholding any information. So is he going to be forced to show off these documents?
Possibly, Christina. And there's really two reasons why Christine is doing this. One, to try to gain leverage over Kevin Costner, right? Force some sort of settlement. Let's say he doesn't want to disclose his finances. But there's also a legal reason. When parties enter into a prenup, they're supposed to disclose everything, all their assets. So if Christine can successfully argue that Kevin was withholding information during that prenup phase, that may give her another chance to try to get the prenup invalidated. Of course, the judge has so far said that the prenup is valid, it controls, and that's why Christine had to leave the house.
Got it. She's also asking for an additional about $46,000 a month in child support, in addition to, I think, the almost $130,000 that she now gets. Do you think that she's going to get this because she says that her children need to be used to the lifestyle that they have been accustomed to?
It's possible. And this is a situation where if the prenup is indeed valid, a party can waive their right to spousal support or alimony, but prenups can't control child support, right? Children are parties to the agreement and you can't waive child support. So this might be a way of Christine trying to backdoor some additional funds. I'm not saying the kids don't need the additional $40,000, but if the prenup is valid and Christine can't get anything more under the terms of the agreement, this might be another way to do so.
Interesting. So Kevin's lawyers did say that her behavior recently is harassment. Do you think that she is taking it a little too far?
Well, we know that these Hollywood divorces can get nasty time and time again every week here on Legally Us. So I'm not surprised that this is happening. Usually it's in the best interest of the party to come to some sort of amicable resolution, but that rarely happens, especially when you're dealing with a high profile, very expensive divorce like this.
This is just beginning, I feel like. Well, speaking of nasty divorces and some money drama, I know that you and Mandy spoke about Royalties-Biermann last week, but Real Housewives of Atlanta alum Kim Zolciak is now in more hot water over her alleged spending habits. So according to documents obtained by Us Weekly, Kim is being sued by a debt collection company for $156,000, which includes interest accrued since she allegedly stopped making payments on the HSBC Saks credit card. Now, the credit card had a limit of $115,000, and the documents show that the reality star's last payment came in September of 2022 in the amount of just over $4,000. The card has since been restricted and cannot be used. Meanwhile, Brielle is being sued by Amex for not paying off her over almost $13,000 in credit card fees. So it's been almost a year since Kim's last payment. So why has it taken so long for the credit card company to sue her?
Well, they should have filed earlier. Sometimes credit card companies, they like those late fees, that interest, right? That's how they make money. But when it's clear that the creditor, is not going to get paid because the debtor hasn't made payments for almost a year, that's a problem. And we saw it with Brielle during the discussion last week. I was asked, well, why did Amex sue so quickly? And I said, well, if you start seeing a situation as a creditor where the credit card holder can't pay, you want to be the first in line, right? Because usually folks are getting paid pennies on the dollar if the debtor ends up in bankruptcy. So sometimes there's a transaction that's secure, let's say a mortgage or something that, a creditor can foreclose on. But usually this type of debt is unsecured, which means that the first to file and to get a judgment is going to be first in line when it comes to payments. Again, of course, unless that person goes into bankruptcy.
Right. So what happens next for Kim? Because as we know, she and her husband called it quits yet again. Are we surprised at this point that they haven't filed for bankruptcy since they seem to be just drowning in debt?
I am surprised. We saw this, separation and a divorce and just really nasty allegations with respect to gambling and, alcohol abuse. And all of a sudden they reconciled and then they divorced again. And now you're hearing about all these financial problems. So I'm really surprised at how they've handled this, both in terms of the family side and the potential bankruptcy. It seems like these two need to separate, need to file for bankruptcy, really start their life over, both their personal and professional life, because everything just seems like a mess right now.
No, it really does. Is it possible that maybe that they got back together to maybe try to figure out their financial situation? Is it better for them to be married and then file together, or is it better for them to file separately?
Well, sometimes it is better to remain married. And sometimes when we saw with Girardi and Erica Jane, sometimes it's actually better to be divorced. So it really depends on the circumstances, what sort of assets the parties have together, whether it's community property or marital assets, what they have separately, if there's debt that's incurred by one spouse and not the other. So there's a lot that's going on here. But obviously, financial problems are one of the number one reasons why people do get divorced, puts a lot of pressure on the relationship. So that may be one of the things that's going on here behind the scenes.
Could be, but she's still flying first class, so I can't figure it out. All right, well, moving over to the blind side, the whole Michael Oher story, people are just fascinated by this, but he allegedly never signed a contract giving producers the rights to the movie. So in new court documents, Michael is asking that Sean and Leah Ann Tui provide a detailed list of accounting corresponding to the earnings they've made on his behalf, including the 2006 film. So he claims that in his new filing that Sean and Leanne both negotiated a contract on his behalf regarding the 20th Century Fox film. So Michael filed a lawsuit earlier this month, as we know, alleging that the Tuohys never legally adopted him, as they publicly said they had, and instead forced him into a conservatorship in 2004. He is now seeking to terminate the guardianship and earn a share of the Tuohy family's film royalties. So how is he going to, what is he hoping to uncover in these documents about, regarding the film?
Well, Christina, this gives me Britney Spears vibes. Again, I don't know if it's true or not, but we do know, covering these cases every week on Legally Us, that conservatorships are meant for people who can't take care of themselves, right? People in a coma, they have dementia, not for someone who's playing college and professional football like Michael Oher. So I don't know what happened between Oher and the Tuohys, if he really was under a conservatorship. I would really be surprised if the legal team at the studio didn't actually enter an agreement with Oher directly and relied on that conservatorship, because most attorneys know that really what a conservatorship is appropriate for, and it's not appropriate for someone like Michael Oher. So now, if you take his allegations at face value and you believe, and it's proven that he was under a conservatorship, the Tuohys signed for him, they kept the money and didn't give any to him or gave him a limited amount of money, then yeah, he has a very valid and actionable claim there. But there's a lot of things that we have to assume to get there. So it's pretty early on in the case, but the allegations are very serious.
Right. But do you think it's going to be pretty cut and dry? They have all these documents. Is it pretty much being all right, this is either a conservatorship document or an adoption document, right? There's probably no in between. So it's got to be on file somewhere, right? Yeah,
it has to be. So an adoption has to happen before the individual is 18. My understanding is that this agreement was entered into after Oher was 18, or whether it was Oher himself or the Tuohys. So I don't think an adoption would be, it's not a situation where the Tuohys could sign on behalf of Oher as their adopted child. It seems like all this conduct took place after Oher was an adult. Now, the adoption was part of the story, and that story might not be true, but it seems like this was all either conservatorship documents or documents signed by Oher himself.
Yeah, messy. All right. Well, Tyga had choice words for his ex Black China after she reportedly filed for joint custody of their 10-year-old son, King Cairo. So he responded to an Instagram post about China taking the rapper to court, saying 10 years later, nah, stick to your schedule, Saturday to Monday. So on August 25th, China filed a petition to determine parental relationship against Tyga for their son, and she is asking that the court to order joint custody of their child. So Tyga currently takes care of their son for more than half the week. So last year, Blac Chyna claimed that she had to give up 3 of her vehicles to make ends meet since she wasn't receiving child support. Well, Tyga, for his part, called out China's comments, saying, I pay $40K a year for my son's school, and he lives with me Monday through Saturday. Why would I pay child support? LOL. So she also shares a daughter with Rob Kardashian, and he also came forward at the time saying that he pays for all of his daughter's expenses as well. He said, I pay $37K a year for my daughter's school, handle every single medical expense. I pay for all of her extracurricular activities. I have my daughter from Tuesday through Saturday. Why would I pay child support? LOL. So why file for joint custody 10 years later?
Yeah, so there's 2 things we're dealing with here. First is the custody issue and then child support. So custody, usually there's a presumption of joint legal custody, but physical custody, when someone's in school, it's going to be with one primary custodial parent, right? The kid has got to go to school. So I'm not surprised that whether it's Rob Kardashian or Tyga, one of the parents has primary physical custody. And, that custody arrangement can be changed by a family law judge, but there has to be a significant change in circumstances. I'm not seeing anything here when a child is in school, school's about to start, right? Either August or September, depending on where you are in this country. So I can't imagine a judge saying, hey, well, the child has been with one parent for many years. This child is going to school. Let me remove that child from his school environment so he can go to another school in or near where Blac Chyna lives.
Right. So since Tyga does have, like you said, has the child for, more than the full week. So does that mean he doesn't have to pay child support if he is if their son is in his care more of the time?
That doesn't mean he doesn't have to pay child support, but if he is taking care of the child and the child is with him 5 or 6 days of the week, any child support payment will be limited or potentially not even any at all. If he's already taking care of the child's expenses such as school, clothes, food, insurance, whatever the case may be, then there may be a situation where the judge says, well, Blac Chyna, if you have, the child for a day or 2, what support do you really need aside from maybe some food and maybe some transportation on those days? Any support would be limited.
Right. So where do you think this kind of falls for China? Because maybe, she didn't receive full custody. I know that she was going through some things. She has tried to make a transformation. Will the judge take that into consideration as well? And maybe going forward, they could work out some sort of agreement, or do you think it'll probably stay as it is? Yeah,
look, a judge isn't supposed to take, the ability to pay as a factor in determining where the child should live. But, if Blac Chyna is coming out and saying she can't even afford to take care of the child, that doesn't strike me as a reason for the child to spend more time with you. Judges are smart. They're not going to use children as leverage to extract money out of an ex. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but, for China to come out and say, I can't afford X, Y, and Z. I have to sell my cars, and I'm trying to ask for more money from the fathers of my children when the children aren't even with me except for maybe a day or 2 every week, doesn't strike me as a particularly good legal argument, especially when what we're really talking about here is what is the best interest of the child.
Thank you so much, as always.
Thanks, Christina. See you next week.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.